Um, on the whiteboard, I think some of it to kickstart yourself off. Maybe the first ideogram was probably a little bit not forced, but from memory, from your RV sessions. But I think once that first ideogram's down and you restart the flow again, I think it's just almost like doing stage six. It just
Comes right back.
kinesthetically, yeah, it just kinesthetically flows. And to be honest, and I've told everyone this all the time, the whole process of doing ideogram, not ideogram, doing your session stood up at a whiteboard, your whole body moving, pacing up and down. That's probably the better way to do RV than being sedimentary sat at a desk trying to do it. Because only half your body, your body is only being involved from the waist up in that regard.
Jimmy, that's what you've been discovering, right?
Yeah. Angela told me to express myself more, and I just stole the idea from Baz. I've seen him so often do it in the Farsight days where I just said, I'm going for it. She told me, get rid of the fear and everything else there and just go for it. Baz has makes a good point about the movement and expression. You get inspired when you're up there and you're excited and you just go for it and you're getting information, you're writing it down, and it's different. It is different than sitting in a space, because I had my gray area with all my, gray spots where I was convinced that, the early data from the, Stargate people, at the military base. And then I decided after Angela says, listen, you got to express yourself more. And I just said, okay, I'll do the whiteboard. So yeah,
Wow.
I think it helps personally. It just, maybe it's my opinion. But what
You,
do you think?
Jimmy, were you doing your sessions live on the board, or were you also replaying paper
No,
sessions?
I did a partial paper session, and then I, like a musician, improvised some parts,
Way to
um,
go.
and just go with it. I think it's the human condition. Uh, try to improvise a little bit, or not stick with just with the facts and just see what happens. Take a chance, and that's what I'm about, anyways. From the music, I think of it more from a musician or artistic background type thing, where I know Dash would probably say the same thing about his artwork or his pictures. That yeah, he could have three pictures on an angle here, but what if he stepped back 5 feet and it's darker here? Let's see what happens, and then go from there, like that type of thing. And that's the way I approach it now. So I would try it, Don. And there's
Yeah.
nothing to lose. And anybody else, just see what happens. We're all learning.
Yeah, well, I'm still trying to figure out how to video record my paper sessions. So when I sort of figured
Yeah.
that all out, then
Yeah.
maybe I'll.
Well, if you use the tablet, because I'm a advocate of tablets nowadays. Like I use a Samsung one. I have a facility. I haven't used it yet, but there's a facility on my Samsung tablet that it can record almost like a video, all my brush strokes on the page, and if I want to speak, it also record and sync the audio that I talk about with the brush strokes actually on the page. So yeah.
Okay, now that right there is very interesting, because what I've sort of discovered in my different variations on the video is revealing the words as if you were writing them helps people follow along. I was trying boxes over them, and that was distracting. And then I tried highlighting the words, and that was distracting. But when you sort of see it being painted on the screen as if you were writing it,
Yes, that's how it looks.
it like hits home.
Yeah.
That's the way. So, but I cannot replay my pen strokes like, and that's what you just said you can do, right?
Yeah, I only played with it the once just to test it because I use a different piece of software on it because it's an Android tablet, so there's like hundreds that you can use. But yeah, it records your brush strokes and you can record your voice as well at the same time, and it syncs it all up. So when you press the playback button, you see the strokes that magically appear on the page, and you hear the voice of the person at the same time.
Oh man, that's the best that you can get.
And it saves it straight out as a PDF file as well, which you can just email straight. So there's no scanning or anything. So you have all your files in one place without doing any work. That's why I'm a great advocate for moving to tablets nowadays. They
Yeah.
cut so much time out of the process.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've been using the Onyx Box Max
Yes.
3,
Yeah.
which is one of these tablets that have they almost don't use any battery at all because they don't have any
An e-ink
backlighting,
display. Yeah.
any ink, right?
Yeah.
And I was surprised that it does feel like paper to me when I put that pen stylus to the tablet. You know, I feel right at home.
Yeah, yeah, and I literally just today I was just showing my partner actually before I came on. I downloaded a new app today, a free app called Sketchbook, and I was trying cartoons for the first time with that, and that's just fun. It was just fantastic. It's got so many brushes on it, air brushes, calligraphy brushes, and I just press a button and I get this wheel come up on the screen of hundreds of thousands of colors, and you can spin the wheel around to what color you want and stuff. It's just so ingenious, and you literally, you can pinch to zoom on your pictures. You can pinch and zoom in right on the detail, and then back out. Absolutely fantastic tool, especially for a remote viewing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Brett Stewart uses one as well. He doesn't use a color one like I do, though. He uses the Remarkable. I think he's got the Remarkable too. Like most people have got the Remarkables.
I did try the Remarkable, and it's a fantastic tablet.
Yeah, I liked it, but I didn't like the user interface. I think the user interface is a bit clunky. Trying to email myself the sessions and stuff like that. It was too temperamental for me. So I moved to the Samsung and the Android ones because it's just so easy with one of those.
Did you
Mhm.
use the more recent one, Daz?
I didn't know. I was using Generation 1.
Got it. Yeah, the speed has come quite a long way with the Remarkable 2, as far as the cloud. Like it's like I just open the Remarkable app on my computer, and it just instantly pulls everything that's new
Okay,
off the
yeah.
tablet. There used to be a delay.
Yeah.
They've made some big improvements with that though, so it's actually really fast now. But yeah, I use Remarkable 2 every single day for remote viewing, and I think the texture is the thing I like the most about it compared to some of the other tablets.
Okay,
Is
yeah.
you get a little bit of that resistance
Yeah.
that you wouldn't get on glass, which I mean doesn't mean you can't remote view really well on glass too, but I'm so used to that feeling that I just a personal preference, which is why I stick to it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I did remember I did like the feeling of the Remarkable because it literally does feel like paper when you're drawing
Yep.
on it. It was just
Yep.
just that clunky user interface. On that first generation, it just did it for me. But other than that, it was fantastic. And I think I'm like you. I don't think I'd ever go back to paper RV sessions again.
Never again.
I mean, the amount of time it saves me just in scanning alone is just hours a week. Okay, guys. So yeah, sorry about that. We just went off on a tangent when we first came into the room here. So hi everyone. Hope you're doing well. If you're new here, what we do is this is just going to be an open chat this evening. So anyone can discuss anything to do with remote viewing questions, or if you've got anything to share, feel free to put your hand up using the reactions window, and then we'll get to you. Or if you don't want to speak, and if you still have a question, just type one up in the chat window and we can answer it that way. So it's literally just open. So let's just see where the night takes us, really. And someone, Dimmy's up first.
Yes. Hello. Hi, Des.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. So I just want to ask, because you're talking earlier about the whiteboard, and I want to know if, let's say, beginners or newcomers, no, I don't know, like me, can use it, or we must have the I don't know, not about a session, can use it after a papers of after the session on the paper. In that moment, as I'm stage 3, so can I use it? Can we use it? All of us?
Yeah, you feel free to use it. The only thing is, because you're working with me and I'm being your mentor at the moment.
Yeah.
You still have to find a way to get what you do on the white screen to me to look at. So you would probably have to get into the routine of maybe
yeah.
you might have to step back and take a picture of every one of your screens before you wipe it off.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never thought so.
Honest, I mean, if you're playing around with non-practice stuff for me, it would be good to use it. Starts maybe using it for operations and stuff. But hey, just get one and give it a try. They're pretty inexpensive on Amazon. I mean, I haven't even used it yet, and I've had it for a year. But I bought an 8-foot by 6-foot whiteboard.
8 foot.
So it's
Okay.
absolutely, it literally is huge. It's almost a whole wall that I've got in one of the rooms here.
I
And
could
I
use
just haven't got
something
around
like
to
this.
using
Yeah.
it.
Thank you. Yes.
And
Okay.
they're literally inexpensive. And you can even get on Amazon now, they even do these like roll up laminated kind of like plastic surfaces. You can literally roll it up, pin it onto the wall, and when you're finished with it, you can roll it back up again and put it in the tube until next time. Kind of
My
thing.
husband will be very happy about it. Not having this
Yeah.
one come. Okay, thank you very much.
But give it, yeah, definitely. I mean, if it's not for practice for me or something, give it a try, because I do really think that the standing up kind of process, a bit like they're starting the practice of people standing up when they're at work now on these standing desks and stuff. It does something to you. I think it does something to you in the RV process to be moving about, getting your feet involved. Up. It's really way more kinesthetic than I think sat at a desk is.
Yes, I think it would be transmitting to my entire body in a different way. So I could.
Another way you could do it,
the...
and I did this many years ago, is, and it's might even be more convenient, is you can get, when people give presentations in Europe and UK to groups of people, you can get these pads called Nobo pads. They're these big square pads.
Okay.
So they're about this big, and you can get it, and it sits on a little tripod, and you can literally, so it's a pad of paper, and you can draw on it and with your stuff, and then you fold the sheets over. That would be good, because then you've got the sheets that you could just take pictures of instead of wiping it off.
Good idea. Yeah.
And then you can just take all that down and fold that away and put it behind a door or something.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Excellent. Anyone else have anything? Oh, so we got some questions in the window here. There's some details there, Dimi, about different stuff you can buy and stuff in the chat window by the looks of it. There's a question in there.
Thank you.
How do you resume a paper session on a whiteboard a couple of days after done it on paper? Well, to be honest, a couple of days after doing it on paper would be very easy. But as I said to these guys here, I've actually had to do it in some instances months later. So what I've done in that case is I've gone back through the paper sessions as much as I can. And to be honest, it's, if it's like 3 months later, it's very hard to take in 60 to 100 pieces of paper and the information. So you just scan through it, really, set up the whiteboard, because I'm also the videographer and the sound person and all that, and the lighting and everything. You're more worrying about that than doing the RV. But the moment you, I think, put your first ideogram on the whiteboard, for some reason it just flows again, and you remember. You probably don't remember all of it, but you do start to get into the signal line again, and it reinitiates new flows of information as well. So a lot of it's new information rather than old information. I must say, I'd probably on those extreme cases with a 3-month wait in between, I probably do miss lots of data that I previously recorded, but it is there in the paper sessions as well for any real analysis. Yeah, I mean, it would be hard for anyone to analyze a video session anyway. I would always think that the paper sessions would be better to score and fall back on. So I don't think I'd like to ever go in a way where I do one or the other. I think both together are probably an ideal solution on that. And was there a second part of this? Do you simply remember the session and feelings you had? Yeah, some of it's remembering, and some of it's a new connection to the same target. Is there a shortcut method to resume sessions this way? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I fell into doing the whiteboard stuff. It was a technique that HRVG pretty much accomplished and gave us, really, under duress, but they gave it to us. Okay, so that's it on that one. Anyone got any questions, or anything you want to chat about? No one's got their hands up at the moment. Nothing in particular. Well, this might be a short evening then. Well, we could have a discussion I've been having with Henny, a really complex discussion we've been having about trying to work out a way to measure and record and, I don't know, understand the components of telepathic overlay within remote viewing. Henny's come up with some solutions, which I think we're going to talk about and need some more investigation and stuff. But I think they're great starts. But it's a conundrum that I've been thinking about for several years now, and I can't. I haven't been able to work out a solution how to measure it or how to get around it. Someone asked what telepathic overlay is. Okay, this is complicating itself. Within remote viewing, there have been many cases, and I would say most of the cases where there isn't enough feedback, or the feedback could be up to interpretation. There are instances recorded, and I got several on my website and in the magazines. I can put the links out later, where different sets of remote viewers, for example, working the same target. And there's a famous case called TWA 800, which was the plane that blew up over America. I think in the 96 was it or something. So 3 different groups of remote viewers were at that very same target, and they worked it all independently, separate from each other. 2 of the groups had ex-military remote viewers in there from the Stargate unit, and the other group was the Farsight Institute with Courtney Brown. And they all worked the same target. We know a plane exploded, so there is solid feedback for that, but there obviously isn't solid feedback for what caused the event of the explosion. But all 3 different groups of viewers went for the exact same target. But every single group of those remote viewers all came up with a different explanation for the cause of the explosion. And really, only one explanation for this can be true. I think the 3 explanations was a missile attack, a terrorist attack with a bomb on board, and a faulty component in the engine or in the plane itself. So that was the 3 different scenarios. It'd be very unlikely for any 2 of those or all 3 of those to have occurred at the same time. So I think we can discount that. But what it just does show is, because each of the 3 groups all came up with a different scenario for it, that there's a possibility that the thoughts or the intents or the beliefs of the person tasking the target to each individual group may have influenced or affected the data that they reported back. And this doesn't just happen in that case. It's a possibility that this happens in we got no way to prove this, but I think this might happen in a majority of remote viewing. A lot of people disagree with me on this, but I don't think there's any way to discount it at this stage. So that's telepathic overlay. But we have to bear in mind, we're talking in a case here where there's a tasker and there's a viewer unit. So we're thinking that the overlay might have come from the tasker in this case. But I've seen other cases as well where overlay may have come from one of the other remote viewers working with you as a group. And there's also a possibility when we work cases and targets like, for example, the last US election, which, as far as I'm aware, virtually every remote viewing group out there got wrong, including 2 groups that I ran, both got it wrong. There's a possibility that the reason we got it wrong, I mean, there's 2 possibilities. One, because we're looking so far into the future that, when we look at the future, they are less accurate. The second possibility in that case is that it could have been tasker overlay. I don't think so in my examples on that. But the third possibility is that it was what we call social overlay as well, that there was so much noise going on globally around the world at that stage that may have affected the data that the remote viewers pulled in. So overlay or telepathic overlay doesn't just have to come from the tasker. It can come from anyone involved in the project or target. And I also believe that it can come from anyone that reviews the project in the future as well. But we can't yet prove this either. And I say this because we don't yet know at which point the remote viewer is going to in the past, present, or future to get the information. So it's sort of really complex situation we have within remote viewing. And what worries me about it mainly is, I just get tasked with doing a lot of esoteric kind of targets, some with scant feedback. And you just wonder when you do a lot of these, is the information coming from the tasker and you're just parrot repeating what they want you to say, or are you actually getting real proper data from the target? And we have to bear in mind that all remote viewing probably has a telepathic component, because you have a tasker over here who blindly sets a target, and you have the viewers over here who have to somehow have a connection with this tasker. And the only thing I can think would be some kind of telepathic connection for them to know, at a level of subconscious or unconsciousness of what this target is and where to go and get the data. So I think there's always some kind of communication there. I don't know if telepathic is the right word for it. There's always some kind of dialogue or communication at some level. But yes, it's a complex subject, one that hasn't been explored enough, in my opinion, within remote viewing. So that's where we are with it, really. And Henny and myself today, we were going through some different scenarios, and she was trying to come up with some solutions on how we could explore trying to measure this. I'm not sure if we're there yet, because it's so complex, because as I said, time really doesn't exist much for remote viewing. So no matter how we try to set up a scenario of a target, unless we keep all the people involved in the project completely blind till the end of time, they may just be going to a point in the future where they do get what the feedback is in the information, and then presenting that in the past as their data. So it's very complex. I don't know if Henny has anything she wants to add to this on any of her solutions she's coming up with.
Yeah, I think I just linked one research that I found today. It was done by Graph, and it was measuring the evidence for retrocausation. They were doing experiments with what I suggested, non-existing targets, and target coupling or target setting, or the existence of the target came back later. And they were doing it only with, I think, 2 viewers, but they came back with the data, or with the hypothesis proved that by the data they got, it is much more likely that retrocausation is happening than it would be if, like, the correlation of data between the future targets that were not existing at the time that they were doing the test. They were actually doing something similar to ERV, I think. I linked it in there. Yeah, they said that that's probably a way to prove that there is retrocausation. So part of the solution that I offered as to measure it is probably going to handle the retrocausation part of the thing. I'm not sure, maybe like there's even simpler ways to handle that. Probably queuing correctly, or queuing to limit the viewer can be a solution. Like, for example, viewers could be asked, group of viewers could be asked to remote view the target, end of story. The second part of the viewers could be probably tasked with remote view the target as understood by the tasker. Remote view the target as understood by, and with many subtasks, we might see if there is a significant, which would be statistically significant difference between the groups and their results. So it can be, but it probably can be done much more simplistically than I first offered a solution for. But I don't know. I mean, I think we have to try. I started reading previous experiments on that. It seems like there was several experiments with ESP and remote viewing and retrocausation. So I'm going to dig into them and see what they come up with so that we don't have to reprove things that have been already tested, tried, and said probably true, and just focus on the overlay part.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. I'll see if I can get some clarification from Dr. Ed May, because he believes that all remote viewing can be explained by us looking into the future and getting the information. I'm not convinced on that, and I know several people aren't. But you know, he's a very credible scientist with decades of work behind him, so he must have some kind of data or papers to back that up in some way.
Can I just ask, what is the definition of retrocausation? Is it what you just said? You go into the future, or you remote view the feedback when it's revealed? Is that retrocausation?
Yeah, it would be something like in the moment of now, like time flowing backwards, or right now we believe or we think in a way that something happening right now is the cause for something in the future. So you have the cause right now in the present, and you have the effect in the future. Retrocausation changes the flow of time, or the flow of causation effect. And it says that something in the future is the cause for an effect in the present. And that
Wow, I've never heard of that. Wow.
Yeah, that is measured by Dr. Graff to be probably true in remote viewing or ESP type of psi abilities.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about this, or a thought, because this is, well, I have a lot I can say on this, but I guess the question I have is, if a viewer never was shown the task, then they shouldn't be able to describe it if that is the mechanical functioning of how remote viewing works, right? Like if it was, the thing was picked, a remote viewer is supposed to remote view it, the tasker set the intention never to show the viewer, they burned the photo, it was gone and that was it, and they never talked about it again, then technically under that model, remote viewing should not work. Is that true?
I don't think so, because that would only not work if remote viewer was remote viewing the feedback, but you are sending them to the target, not the feedback. The fact that he doesn't get feedback on what the target was doesn't mean the target didn't exist and he couldn't see it.
Well, I guess if the future is affecting the past, then where would the viewer be getting the data from the future if they never got any feedback? How would they ever know, is the question. Well, and therefore, if they didn't know, how would they ever be getting data?
I'm absolutely not an authority on this, but my logic would say that just because you don't see the feedback doesn't mean you don't get target contact. The only thing you don't know when you don't get feedback is how good you measured up, how accurate you were. But all else, like you had a target, the only way you don't remote view a target if you don't have a target, like if you have empty coordinates. Nothing is assigned for this coordinate, then you view nothing. But okay, otherwise, if you just not see the feedback, doesn't mean that you didn't have a target and you didn't work it.
Right. Maybe I'm not being clear about what I mean. This is the thing. The reason I bring this up is because I've had someone on many occasions, for myself and someone else that I work with, we were given tasks where the intent of the tasker was not to give us feedback and to see if we could remote view accurately what the tasker chose. And on each of those occasions, there was rather significant, I mean, I still don't know what those things are today, but there were rather significant hits on those. Some of them were objects, one of them was a photo, one of them was an item down a desk. I mean, that was for somebody else. I have no idea what any of these ones were precisely, but there's never any feedback given to the viewer. So there's never any future event for the viewer to have that they could transport back in time to give them in the past when they're running the session. So there never was a loop to occur. And so if there's never was a loop, than what was going on if it was retrocausal.
Well, there's still a loop with the people involved in the experiment, though, isn't there?
But just because they're involved, they're not telling. But see, that's the thing. So you're saying that
But they don't.
just
They
because
don't
there's
also
someone else
They don't also tell you
involved-
the. They don't tell you the target, but you know what the target is.
So are you saying it's telepathy then? That their understanding of it is you're telepathically getting it?
I don't know what Ed's definition of it is, but you know, everyone that's involved in the experiment can affect the experiment, and we automatically as remote viewers know what what the target is without knowing what the target is. So there is a connection. There is an invisible connection there, isn't there?
So what if a computer randomly selects it?
Well, good question. That's something that would need to be looked at. I think yes. I think that and the viewers not getting any feedback would be an interesting experiment.
Or
Now,
changing the target during the experiment and see if there is a difference.
Ooh, yes.
If you assign the target coordinates when you begin, you let viewers view, and then somewhere along the line, you change the target.
because I mean, setting
That
up
would be
blind pools,
retrocausation.
right? Setting up blind pools. I mean, that's been done for a long time in remote viewing, where a computer just randomly selects a picture out of a pool, and there was no tasker who set it up. It's just a random number associated with one of these random things out of the pools, and then the viewer remote views it. And I guess at some point, someone has to look at the feedback to see how well that viewer did. The viewer doesn't have to be that person, though, to see, well, did you do a good job or not, right? It could be someone else to say, hey, I had this computer randomly generate something for me. No one picked it. And that still works. And so I guess I have a hard time believing that there's a future point in time that people are sending information back over the model of information just exists more like a database that you're turning your attention to, and you're just pulling information out of a database, as opposed to these time loops that have been written about more in popular culture lately, where it's like the future memory that you have is what there's a really popular book right now. It's called Time Loops. I forget the guy's name, but where he thinks all psi is, or precognition, not psi, is because of future memory. And it just doesn't, maybe I'm missing something, but for me, it just doesn't click. It doesn't make sense to me personally. I could obviously be totally wrong, but just my own personal thoughts about it, I guess.
It's a hard one, isn't it? Maybe we're talking about a moving scale here of different things that's happening in different situations.
They could both be true too, is the thing. Like, they aren't mutually exclusive. There could be things where there are instances where there is information being quote unquote, transmitted back from the future to the present, retrocausal, while also there being part of reality, a database of information that also human consciousness has the ability to tap into and extract, like download data from the internet, that kind of idea. Those aren't mutually exclusive concepts. And so maybe both can happen, who knows? But I mean, it's hard to tell when you can't look under the hood.
The problem I have with the library database thing is, why would there be displacement? Why would there be so much error? And why would there be overlay if we were just accessing a library or a database of information?
Yes, I can answer that really easily. You know,
go for it.
so far I have some friends that work as librarians, right? And whenever I tell them that, you know, hey guys, last month you had everything cataloged this way, now I can't find the book, they tell me, well, welcome to the club. It's been more than 300 years and we have not figured it out, not even with computers. we can do this, and then we find a loophole, and then we end up with at least 3 different cataloging processes in the library. So next time, just ask us. And you know, I asked a guy in the company I used to work before why they were keeping all their monetary records in paper in Panama, and I figured it out after the Panama Papers fiasco came in. You know, if you didn't have anything in an electronic format, it was never ending. So that they covered themselves by doing that by hand and having really complex systems that overlap. I just wanted to add that.
I would, if my ideas on that concept of, well, why would there be displacement and why would there be 3 different groups that got different things. It's probably, I mean, I could only guess, but I imagine this is a multivariable problem. It could be from bad analysis to, I'm not saying that happened in any of these cases, but it could be bias from the judges or during the analysis that this is what this meant. Someone else might, I mean, McMonigal believes that there's no such thing as displacement. That is just viewer error, and that the viewer just made an error. It's like the viewer picked the wrong book off the shelf. I'm not sure if I fully am in agreement with that one, of the idea that there's no such thing as displacement, but that is another idea that's out there. But I think I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the viewer. It's the skill of the viewer is another thing that could come into account here, is that you got the wrong answer because perhaps you just don't, I don't, more training. I don't know. I need more training, kind of a thing.
Yeah. But I mean, we're all coming up with some great ideas and suggestions and answers here, but I think we can all agree that it needs a hell of a lot more understanding and research, because we really don't understand what's going on with any of this. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
There was one thing that John Herlosky came up with when he was on your show, and that was he was talking about a remote viewing session where he was the teacher guiding his students to, I think it was the Titanic, under the sea. And he realized they weren't like showing up. He was doing the, what is it, where you go to sleep and you what is that? Is that ARV?
ERV.
ERV. Yeah. And so what he did was he stood on the bow of the Titanic. Apparently he was bilocated. He knew he was there, and he went to the bow and he lit up to attract his students. And I think someone asked the question on this chat, if I remote viewed that event now, would I see you there lighting up? And he said no. And that was important. That's like there's some sort of other thing. There's this overlay of real time versus this historical matrix of data that you're remote viewing. I haven't figured out how to use that data, but it seemed vitally important.
It's interesting, Don, because, and I've said this to other people as well. Like, for example, I've got a big target pool on my website, for example, and thousands of people have used those targets now. And, those targets are pretty much set. Some of them are pretty much set, because they say, the time of the event is the time of the photograph, for example, which is a set moment in time. And for example, on the Eiffel Tower one, and I don't know if that's one on there, but I think I got the Eiffel Tower in that target pool, and I think it's got viewer must move to the time of the photograph and describe. Now, if 10,000 people as remote viewers are done that target and they're all going to that target at the same time, I haven't seen a single session or had any of those remote viewers come back saying I saw 9,999 other remote viewers at that target. In fact, I've never seen a remote viewing session yet in thousands, and I've looked through the Stargate archives, Ingos, and everything, where remote viewers have seen other remote viewers at a target site.
That is an interesting detail.
I've never seen that either. Yeah.
So if we were actually physically ever going to a target, and that target for those photograph ones would be set to a millisecond in time, and tens of thousands of people have all done the same target, and not a single one has ever reported any other remote viewer, then I think the chances are we aren't going anywhere. The data we're just accessing the data.
So what is that saying then? That our intellect is a separate thing, and what we remote view is some sort of matrix that's separate from us?
This is why we're here to discuss things, because it's just, 2030. Well, they've been researching this since 72, and no one's come up with any good explanations for what's going on. I think, to be honest, like when John did his experiment, I think we're all creators in what we're doing, and what he was creating at that time and place, what he was doing, he was creating the reality for that experiment, and him being there, creating it for that moment made it happen, dependent on the belief system of all those people involved in that room with him.
Oh, like a shared belief system.
Yeah, and I think that happens sometimes with groups that work together for long periods of time as well. For example, the many years I worked at Farsight, I can't remember how many years it is. That's been about 8 years or so. And I find this with all situations of remote viewing groups that I join in and participate in. The first several experiments and months, as you're feeding each other out as a team, are always a little bit rocky. You don't really trust the person that's tasking you a target, so you don't know how it's going to go. So I find that the data you report is a little bit edgy. You're half on, half off. It's never really amazing hits. But once you really, as a team of people, start to really trust each other and get into a flow, it's almost like being in a marriage. You almost like everything syncs up. And I guess it's a bit like I recently wrote an article on this on a thing that's being explored quite a lot called brain syncing. And I think that the brain syncing that happens is a thing that happens immensely within RV as well.
In other words, a purely physical brain as opposed to
they've actually measured it. It's in the article. They know the actual frequencies of people that work projects together as team projects. They find that their brains start to sync and they all resonate at the same frequencies.
Yeah.
So I think that, John in his room might have had that kind of short-term brain syncing effect with the people in the room. And and it essentially is a bit like the films The Matrix. What you believe, you make it real for that time you're there in
wow, it blows my mind.
RV always blows my mind. All this is just absolutely amazing. And you do get people that say, we know, we have the answers, none of this happens, blah blah blah, but we don't. None of us knows any of this, and that's what makes it so amazing. And what blows me away as well is like what Brett was talking about just now, maybe more than one solution to this. It's almost, to me, and is growing more in my belief system, that it almost feels like what the mechanism is behind this RV thing is almost a life form of consciousness of its own. We're having this trickster effect. You think you've mastered it as a remote viewer. You think you're there. You're on the edge of really understanding it, and then it throws you a curveball, and then you're back to square one. And you're like, well, how does that work? It does seem to be that way. And the way that we were discussing, maybe different things, different scenarios where the overlay happens or getting data from the future and bringing it back to the past. Maybe that happens one time, but another time it happens in a different approach. Is for a different approach to work in a different situation, would that mean that there's some kind of conscious kind of mechanism there that's making a choice, saying, okay, you're not using this solution to get it this time, you'll go to the future, get it and bring it back, because that way's blocked. There seems to be some kind of intelligence.
Routing. Yeah, it's a routing mechanism almost.
Yes. It almost seems to be like we would use the internet with a router and stuff. One way's blocked, you need a new IP address, you're going this way to get the data coming. But that would need some kind of mechanism behind it to take those actions. And that's what I feel there is. There does seem to be this something there that's I don't know, manipulating or controlling or moving how we interact with this.
Interesting observation.
I can't prove any of it, but it just feels that way. Yeah. I just saw some talk about Pat Price in the and his he didn't get feedback on something because he died. I some of the guys on here I've shared this with, but I haven't put it public yet. But I interviewed the director of Third Eye Spies a week or so back, Lance Mangia, specifically because I heard that he recorded a specific segment, and we detailed this, and I will put the video out in a couple of weeks. But in this segment, and you guys may have seen the documentary Third Eye Spies, there's a part there with Hella Hamid, and she was doing an experiment, I think around about 74 with Russell Targ, and she was describing an overpass that was close to SRI. So it was an overpass that goes over a road, and they recorded it all at a time. And it was an outbounder where How Putoff went to the overpass, and she had to see How Putoff walking on the overpass. And, you know, she did it all, and they recorded it. It was an amazing hit. But what they found, and this is where it just blows me away, is that happened in 1974. Lance Mangia made the documentary just 2 or 3 years ago, where they went back to the overpass, you know, to film extra footage for the documentary. And this time he took Russell Targ instead of How Putoff. So Russell Targ was there in the overpass, you know, and he was walking around. And, you know, Russell Targ, as you know, he's got sight problems and stuff. He's getting on in age. And, Lance was saying he was kind of hunched up, not finding his way around very well. And then he said when they got back to the studio, they listened to the original recording from 1974 of Hella Hamid. And bear in mind, you know, she's been dead quite a few years now, well before they filmed this documentary. And as they were listening to the tape of what she recorded in 1974, it actually dawned on them that it looks like she was actually describing a composite of How Putoff there in 1974 looking around, and also Russell Targ looking there in our time just a couple of years ago, because her descriptions were of a man that was hunched over, finding it hard to walk around. And in the 70s, that was not How Putoff. And she also describes on the tape that they had to go, there was an object in the middle of the walkway that they had to walk around. That didn't exist in the 70s. And it's a bike block now to slow bikes down on the path. And that was only put there in the late 90s, years after Hannah Hamid had actually died. So this is just like mind-bogglingly complex. But yes, all that's on this video, and I'll be putting that out in a couple of weeks. But I heard the story of that, and I wanted to ask him expressly about it, because that just blows me away that Hella Hamid was actually getting data from the documentary a decade or more after she'd actually died, and then bringing it back to 1974. And I was saying, Lance, for her to get that data from that documentary, the chain of events that would have to happen in sequence for all this to happen, for, you know, Lance to eventually 20, 30 years later to make a documentary about remote viewing, for her to bring that information back to 1974 is just mind-bogglingly complex. And I just like, can you imagine, you know, how many singular little details have to go in line over decades for that to actually happen? Yeah, mind-boggling. Anyway, yeah, so that will be out in probably a week or two's time. That I'll put that whole thing out for you guys to watch. Paul's had his hand up for a while. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Daz. I had a couple of topics I wanted to raise for your comment that have caused me to have a significant drop in my volume of remote viewing. I used to do ARV twice a day, and I'm now down to about twice a week because of some stuff that's, you know, I've picked up in these Friday sessions. I'll give you the examples. The first example, a couple of months ago, somebody in my meditation group came to me and wanted my medical opinion about getting the COVID vaccine. They said they'd had breast cancer, chemotherapy, and had really, you know, almost died from the chemo. And they wanted to know if there was any data regarding the safety of COVID and people who had, you know, serious illnesses like they had. And there wasn't. So I turned to ARV. I did 6 sessions, and they were absolutely blowout sessions. I mean, they were just amazing hits for all 6 of them. And all 6 of them said, no, don't get the vaccine. And the person was sitting right next to me the whole time. I was talking him through and showing him how it worked, and you know, how I would randomly pick the targets and randomly pick the yes, no answer and so forth. And it was all, and then the person turned around and went and got the vaccinated anyway, because they were virtually the only one that we knew that hadn't been vaccinated. And so far they've done fine. So I'm left with 2 possibilities. One is that this was just a very strong telepathic overlay, that this person had concerns, and I picked that up and, you know, dutifully reported it. And the other is that it really will be a problem that may show sometime in the future. I can tell you that the person, they were concerned about lymph nodes showing up if they get the shot in their arm. So they got the shot in their leg, which was very very ingenious. So the first concern I had was telepathic overlay and how to design a question and a topic that eliminated that. And I'm struggling with that. And that's a big part of my volume drop off. The second thing has to do with a number of people have said that you really shouldn't remote view other persons without their permission. You don't snoop. And I mean, I suppose it's one thing if it's Project Stargate and you've got to find information on the Russians and you're in uniform and this is your job. That's one thing, but it's another if you just trying to understand why somebody does something and you're remote viewing them without their permission. So my number of sessions is dropped off between concerns about whether there's telepathic overlay and concerned about whether I have permission to do any questions that are anything other than directly related to myself. So I don't know what your thoughts are on this.
Okay, we can start on the overlay. I mean, it's best to try to get rid of it as much as possible in doing, proper blind or double blind experiments. That's a good way. And trying to work with people that don't have massively preconceived ideas that they're trying to telepath, and you can kind of get an opinion on that by when you talk to someone. For example, I have to be honest, probably working for Courtney for all those years, the experiments that we did may have been massively compromised because of Courtney's steadfast belief systems in everything ET that has gone on for, well, since I've known him do RV, which is, back to 96 when he wrote his first book, Cosmic Voyage. So you have to bear in mind that he's probably too biased in one way. So, it's trying to find people that have an open mind as much as possible on any of the projects you're working with. And they're not, they don't have a steadfast, fast belief system on projects with scant feedback, because if you have a project with like the Eiffel Tower, we have pictures, video, we know the Eiffel Tower exists, it's there, millions of people have seen it. Those kind of targets you shouldn't have any telepathic overlay on, because the feedback is unequivocal, really. So that's how to deal with the telepathic overlay. Try to keep it as scientific as possible and try to keep the people as open-minded and non-biased as possible that you're working with as part of the team, and that includes the viewers as well. If you're working in a viewing team, and let's say you're working on some kind of weird esoteric target where one of the viewers has a real hardcore steadfast belief that they've been building for several decades, then that we have to be honest, that may impact the team remote viewing for that project, especially if they are a more powerful psychic telepath remote viewer than you are or the rest of the group are. We have to bear that in mind. Something else you guys should also worry about, I mean, not so much me because I don't do public target pools, is that every target pool that's out there, probably in the public domain at the moment, mine, Lynn Buchanan's, several others out there, they're all targets that are created by trained psychics and remote viewers which all have our step path belief systems. Does that influence what you get as remote viewers? Am I unconsciously in my target pool pushing my opinion of the target out with each target, bearing in mind that I'm a psychic? Then if the target pool was created by someone that with no psychic ability, I don't know. That's something that would need to be investigated as well. But yeah, I was just chucking that one out there. I can't remember what the second question was now. What was the second question? Sorry.
It was on snooping.
Oh, snooping. Yeah, this is a hard one. Very hard. Ethically, if we go by the proper rules of etiquette and being ethic and moral, probably looking at any person without their consent would be wrong. but I pretty much do it every target I do. I don't know what to say on it really. Because you're working blind as well, so you don't know what the target is or where it is, what time it is, or anything. And if you pick up there's life there, and it's your job and your responsibility to your client to give them information, I report the information on the life form there, and I do move inside them and look at their thoughts and their intentions and all that kind of stuff. I do it every week with crypto viewing, because we do these crypto targets there where we look at the cryptocurrencies each week, and they're blind. They're blind to a degree. There are 12,000 of them, so it's 1 in 12,000. But each one I look at those on a weekly basis, I always look at the primary person or the CEO involved in that company that looks at that crypto, and quite often I will go inside them, and me, Dick, and Edward and Niam get really good, accurate results. We did one this week alone where we went inside the CEOs of a company, and all of us reported problems with legal problems. I was talking about embezzlement. We were looking at legal papers and loads of errors and stuff. And it just happened to be a crypto that's having lots of legal issues, and they're going for the court stuff. But we were literally going inside the mind or the headspace of this person, describing issues and legal problems and all this kind of stuff. Is that ethical? It's a hard one, isn't it? Probably not ethical, but is it provable in a court of law? I mean, does that make it right? I don't know. It's a hard one, and as I said, I struggle with this myself because I know I cross the line all the time. And as another example, I did 250 missing persons cases for the Find Me group in the police. Several times I was asked to find suspects. The problem is, I was given descriptions and locations for suspects wanted in case of missing people, murders and stuff. But by the laws of America, because I'm in the UK, so it doesn't apply to me. But the laws of America, you're innocent until proven guilty. So am I? Even though the police are asking me to snoop on someone to bring them to justice, they're still innocent until they've been proved in a court of law. So is that ethical? Is it moral? So, do you know what I mean? It's got all this has got huge implications, and I find it very hard to understand where I personally sit. I try to go by the rules of trying to do no harm to anyone, and that's all I can personally say on this. On the bigger questions, I think it's a messy quagmire of where we go. I think each of us individually have to make our own minds on this. Really, that's all I can offer on it. Anyone else got any viewpoints on that one? No, you're all being quiet on that one, aren't you?
I just want to say, how can you impose ethics or being moral during anyway when you're tasked with the target? You cannot.
It's a hard one. I know Irva have got some ethical guidelines on their website. I don't know if anyone's seen them. Let me see if I can pull them up and put them in the chat window, which are interesting. I don't know if we'd ever be able to impose them on anyone, though. As I said, bearing in mind we're all in different countries as well, so we all got different laws and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think it's up to you guys to make up your own mind on it, really, what you're comfortable with. For example, I would never, and I've been asked many times if I would remote influence situations, and it's just somewhere I'm just not ever comfortable in going in anything like that. Right. So I found the ethical guidelines from Irva. I'll put them in the window. I don't particularly agree with these, but you guys can have a look at them and see what you think. So there's a link there in the window to Irva's ethical, and they call them guidelines, I think, rather than rules. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Ethics have been talked about for several decades now within remote viewing, but I don't think anyone's come up with a solution on this. Just, I would say, try to not do any harm to anyone, and you have to individually make up your own minds on what you can live with. I think that's all I can offer on that one.
Yeah, well, Daz, I think when you're talking remote influencing, when the timeline will change, yeah, I'm very clear that when the former guy didn't get reelected, that the remote viewers, there may have been a dozen or more that were very solidly predicting reelection. They weren't really wrong. They were correct at the time that they did it, but that things changed. The timeline changed at the last minute, and that may very well have been an act of remote influencing by somebody. And so you've drawn a line there. I know Lynn Buchanan has been in the same position. He's drawn a line there. And but yeah, I mean, did you really want the former guy to be back again? I mean, I mean,
It's a hard one, isn't it?
yeah, you've given some great answers though about do no harm with snooping choice, and you've also said to be scientific about telepathic overlay designing questions, and that's been very helpful to me, and I appreciate it, and I thank you.
Yeah, no worries. But I have to be honest as well. Like in the RV session we all just did for this cryptocurrency, where all 4 remote viewers said it looks dodgy. Look at these people involved. There lawsuits, all kinds of stuff happening. We got this with remote viewing data, and then when we got the feedback from Dennis on the target, they are actually going through lawsuits and stuff at this time. So I feel that we are not crossing the line. I think we're on the line of ethical responsibility on that, because we do have patrons that pay us for information, and we are essentially saying, our intuition tells you to be wary of these people. So yeah, I think we're close. I think sometimes we step close to the line of ethical and moral responsibilities. I have to be honest on that. But we also have responsibilities to our patrons that are essentially our clients. To give them as truthful information as possible. It's an interesting topic, as I said. So yeah, thanks for bringing it up. It's complex, and I don't think we're ever going to solve it, not in any time soon. But yeah, thanks for talking about it anyway.
Daz, could I add something to that?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'm sure you heard the story of Uri Geller. He was actually hired, I read, to do that against Americans' enemies. Now, I don't know how much I believe Uri Geller, because he seems sometimes uncredible, but he has an interesting story about that he tells. And he was hired supposedly by our CIA and to do that, to influence on our part, the American side, other people and sub-generals. He has an interesting story, but I don't know what to think of Uri Geller personally, So I don't know. I mean, it sounds like anything goes, so to speak, if it's true. So I think it's just an interesting story, and I don't know much about remote influencing. I've never experienced it, so I'm completely lost on the subject. I mean, do you believe it's really possible? I'm not saying you can't influence.
Yeah, no, I believe it's possible, because I've seen studies on the effects of prayer,
Right,
and on remote healing. And if prayer and remote healing works, then that's just another essential offshoot of what
variation, right?
Yeah, with remote viewing, you would put your attention somewhere else to cause something, an effect. And we know, and I know for myself, because I did an experiment with a guy up in Scotland called Andrew Escher several years ago. We did a remote viewing, remote influence experiment, because he bought himself a random number generator. And it's just attaches to a computer, and then it prints out on the screen on a sheet of paper a random number sequence, and it generally has a bell curve that goes up and down. And we set a target for me to look at, and he's in Scotland, so that's like 300-400 miles away. And I RV'd it with the intention at the same time to make the random number generator not be random, which I managed to do. We only ran the one test, but yeah, I literally just did a quick RV session, and that worked. So that showed me that this kind of stuff's happened. But I've also seen and read lots of reports on prayer and remote healing as well, and that works. It's just something I've never dared to go into myself because the effects would worry me. About honing that ability, I think. Because you would only need someone that's, and not everyone within remote viewing is a sane person. You would only need someone with an ulterior motive to learn to do something like that, and I think it could be potentially quite damaging to people. Yeah. But I know and we have to be honest here, the Stargate unit did look into remote influencing. They didn't call it that, mind. They called it RA, which was remote action. I found several reports of work into remote action, and I found one report from the very early 80s that I've got, and it details a list of all the remote action experiments that they were going to do, and some of them were quite shocking. But I can never find any confirmation past that one single document if any of that took place. And the remote the RA, the remote action side of what happened in the Stargate unit kind of SRI scenario is a little bit shrouded in secrecy, a little bit more than the remote viewing side of things. But we do know from early Ingo stuff, he was doing stuff with Cleve Baxter and early psi experiments, ASPR, where he was affecting temperatures in sealed containers in other rooms. He was making the temperatures go up and down in those. And I think there was some kind of bacteria experiments as well that they were doing, where he affected bacteria and stuff. So, and we know about his famous magnetometer experiment, where he did the output from that. So we know it happens. It's just something that scares me to look into, if I'm honest with you. Yeah. Not everyone's as nice as we are talking about this on a Friday night.
There was an interesting program, a lecture series I just saw a couple of weeks ago where they were talking about remote healing. And, they had some healers who had approached the subject, and, the person did have some healing effect. But then they had this same healer heal somebody hundreds of miles away, and they still had a healing effect. And the question that they were asking was, well, if it's not a physical thing, what is doing the healing? And they surprised me by saying something like, is the healing data? In other words, you're sending data to this remote person hundreds of miles away, and that data helps you heal. I don't completely understand this concept. This is a new thing for me. I just thought I would mention it because it is sort of different from anything else that I heard about.
Wow, that sounds interesting. If you could find the any details of that, Don, the link or the name of the program and stuff, I'd be interested in following that one up.
I might be able to find that. I'll have to look.
Yeah, just if you can, that'd be great. Thanks for that, guys. Okay, Pablo, you've had your hand up for a while as well. Would you like to go next?
Absolutely. Thank you, Das. So just wanted to add something, when talking about the overlay, we could check it from the outside perspective, right? Not just the actual RV perspective. And when I started learning RV, the guy that was teaching the group, he was a big fan of Carl Jung, and most of us have heard of him on the theories, the collective unconscious, and so on. And even though we don't have proof of that happening, there were a lot of experiments with, collective or, lots of people experiencing the same things. Also in other studies, even Ingo refers that in some of his books, we could see like weather impacts in how people think. So kind of pointing to the fact that we are not individuals all the time, but also like a big organism. No, I'm not saying like, the sci-fi movies where all the aliens are controlled by the mother brain or something like that, but kind of we are connected. And also when we talk about the Indian sutras and so on, we know that the interpenetration that has been talked by many people, not just Ingo, but kind of referred that one way or another we are interconnected. I remember some experiments done, from the psychological part to see whether mothers and childs could experience things far away, and that kind of feels that. Other things that, some projects I've heard of where they try to collect information from people sensing something happening. And one of the recollections I have is one of these guys researching this, talking about 9/11, that it was incredible how lots of people that usually worked at the towers didn't go to the towers that day. They just felt something was wrong. They didn't want to go. They felt that something was off, and they decided not to go. And that's the feeling that many people felt around the world. So kind of points to the fact that if we look to the broader day to day, there's more overlay than we think about. So if I want to get a little bit technical, be it quantum mechanics or be it general relativity, time, for example, general relativity talks about simultaneity. You cannot say something happened before something else unless you have a reference. And if someone else is watching it from a different reference point, then it could have happened the other way around. So probably that's how, depending on where you're looking from in RV, you get different things from the future or the past or whatever. And in quantum mechanics, things like superimpose, like add up to. And if we are led to believe that the Mandela effect is real, then we know that everything is refreshed from time to time. So we may be, carrying on traces from something that recently changed, and we are just getting that as noise. So lots of research to do, but my final point here is that we could gain a lot if we're looking at this from a broader perspective, if we consider RV just part of our own nature, and that goes beyond that, right? So that's what I wanted to share with everyone. Just a little bit of thinking here, need a little bit of chocolate or something else. It's almost weekend.
Thanks for that, Pablo. Yeah, great thoughts. It's a conundrum. That's all my only word for it. And I think it was Bill Ray that said it most eloquently many years ago when he just said it's just magic. RV is just magic. That's I used to think no, a couple of decades ago I was younger and I was like, no, we can work this out. We can sort out what this is. But now I just think, oh, it's just too complex. Yeah, it's just, if I just say it's magic, then I can move on. I can just do the RV. But thanks for that. Yeah, Stephen, you've had your hand up for a while as well. How are you?
Why, can you hear me? I've got a question for Stuart. I'm doing your online course, and a few weeks ago I watched a video of one of these sessions, and something on when they started, spirit beings started appearing in their house. And that's what I'm frightened of.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that. I heard you were frightened of something.
A few weeks ago, I watched one of these on YouTube, and people kept saying when they first started remote viewing, they saw shadows or beings in their houses. I think I'd be frightened if that happened, but I don't know where they're coming from.
Okay, yeah. So you were saying a few weeks ago, people were reporting that they had extra experiences and they were seeing beings and that kind of stuff, and you'd be worried about that. We just have to be honest, really, that once you start going down the route of training and remote viewing, you are expanding your awareness of the world. Things do change. You change as a person because your viewpoint of the world and your part in the universe changes, and that does undoubtedly open you up to the potential for other experiences, and you may start to hear and see and experience lots of things that are around you. But you have to be aware as well that you really don't have to be scared of any of these things you may encounter. If it's like a shadow being, or some people call it a ghost or a spirit. They call it all different kinds of things. Generally, the things you encounter won't be harmful in any way. They may shock you at first because it's a new experience for you, but it generally isn't anything detrimental or harmful to you as a person. So I wouldn't be scared about it. It just means that, yeah, you're opening up your awareness, and new things and new horizons are opening up for you. Does that answer your question, Stephen?
Yes, yeah, I have yeah, I decided to go for through it, but let's do it basic course for $149. Stop it before I go pay more money on that. I want to do the new Canon, it's too expensive at the moment. So
Yeah, I'm sorry, Stephen. I didn't quite get that.
I wanted to do the new Canon online course,
Yeah.
but that's expensive for me at the moment. It's 1,900 or something.
1,900 and something for an online course.
Yeah, then Canons.
Okay. Are you gonna take that one?
Then I don't know. I'm considering doing Rex course first. That's $149.
Yeah.
Be a very basic one, but I think I'll try that one first.
Well, Lynn is very accomplished in what he does, and he's trained many thousands of remote viewers out there that have gone on to train other people. So it should be a good course for you if if it suits your available budget. That's all I say to people is do your research first to make sure that the person you're training with is a good fit for you as a person and methodology, and if it fits your budget as well, because remote viewing can be done for as little as nothing to I've known people spend tens of thousands on full training. So all I can say is make sure you do your research first. But Lynn has taught many people and many teachers that have gone on to teach people, so you'd be in good hands going down that route if that's the route you want to go down.
Yeah, well then, I'll do Brett. I'll do this basic one with Brett first. Then see where I go from there.
Yeah, you break up quite a lot for me. I didn't quite get that one either.
I don't want to start. I'm going to do Brett's online course first.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, Brett was here. He's gone now. Otherwise, he could have hyped that up a little bit. But yeah, Brett's a great teacher and a great remote viewer as well. So that would be a good start for you as well. To be honest, I don't think you can go wrong with any of the methods out there, as long as you dedicate yourself to sticking with it for a period of time before moving on to any others. Yeah, and as I said, just pick one where the teacher and the budget suits you as an individual.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Evangelos, you've been waiting for a while as well. How are you this evening?
Hello.
Hi there.
I'm fine, thank you. As long as remote viewing and remote influencing and the ethical part for starters. The ethical barriers for remote viewing are lower than remote influencing. Out of experience, what I'm saying, okay? And I won't call it exactly remote viewing and remote influencing because it's not under the protocol of remote viewing. I'll call it telepathic viewing and telepathic influencing. Okay, when you telepathic view something, you don't actually change the course of things of how they were supposed to happen. When you telepathic influence something, you might change the course, the natural course of how things should happen. And that backfires if you change it. Okay. Out of experience, I don't have children and I haven't tried it with my sister. But when I realized I can influence other people, I did it with my parents. It's very easy to influence your parents. Very, very easy. It needs a great sense of feelings, like you do it with your heart. And it's not always with loving kindness. It might be with anger. Okay, it's a feeling. Anger is a feeling too. And you also, on the same time, you synchronize actually your feelings and your focus, your mental focus on what you want to happen. For instance, another thing you can influence is bugs, the flying ones, like bees. Bees are very easily influenced. If they enter a room, it's very easy to influence them to get out of them. Out of bugs, the ones that are not so easily influenced are flies and mosquitoes. I don't know if it's something in my subconscious because I might not like them and I cannot influence them so easily, but the rest, I influence them very easy, very, very easy. You can try it with worms, the ones that go out on the ground after it rains. You can try it with them. You can give them a sense of direction if you want them to go right or left. They are very easily influenced too. We can say that this happens because actually everything, as it turns out, is connected with a, let's say, invisible, how we can call it, something invisible that connects everything. Actually, the materialistic science that we say we have it for the last 120 or 130 years. After an experiment that happened in the late, in 1890s or somewhere like that. The experiment is called Michelson-Morley. Until then, the scientific community, half the scientists were starting from a paradigm that everything is material, and we're trying to get explanations about everything in science from the materialistic view, and the other half scientists of the planet were starting from the paradigm that there is an invisible, let's call it energy, let's say, that connects everything. Okay, so they had to figure out which one of the two is correct. So they had an experiment back then, the Michelson-Morley experiment. Out of the two people that constructed it, Mr. Michelson and Mr. Morley, they did the experiment, got the results, observed the results, and they decided that everything is material and that invisible net, let's say, does not exist. That experiment was redone. We did it again 100 years later. That was in 1987 or 1988, if I'm not mistaken. It was done again by the American, I don't remember if it was the American Navy, military Navy, or the military Air Force, or the American Army. We did the exact same experiment, got the exact same results, but we had better equipment, technological equipment, to observe the results. And we found out that it exists, that net that connects everything. If that net is in quantum mechanics let's say, it obeys to quantum mechanics and not classical mechanics, then it means that time and space does not exist. Which gets me back to the thing you said about the TWA 800 flight, that they got 3 different results. Okay, the viewers might have been looking in the past to see what happened to the aeroplane, why it blew up. Okay, but because on the level they were trying to view it, time doesn't exist. Maybe the future was getting mixed with the past, let's say. In the future, what I mean by that? Do we know if mass media and the people in general had an opinion about what happened after it happened? Like, for instance, let's say for 1 week, people thought, the first week after the accident, people thought that it was a missile that hit the plane, a rocket. The next week, the second week after the accident, they thought that it was a terrorist attack. And the third week after the accident, they thought that it was a malfunction of the plane and something blew up. And maybe each group of the viewers got the overlay of its different ideas we had about what happened as a society.
Yeah, that would make sense. We just have to ask the question, why do we pick up what might be happening at a societal level rather than getting actual data from the target event itself? But yeah, it could be happening. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's great stuff. Okay, so I think we've got rid of all the hands up. Anyone else got anything they want to say from the chat window here? I don't think there are any questions in the other chat window. In the text chat window. Let me have a look here.
If there are no more questions, I would like to ask something openly.
Yeah, go for it.
You recently published a poll where you were asking whether in stage 6 we will be using modeling or actually advanced sketching.
Yes.
And you know, because of the way I learned TRB first, you know, we were not into modeling. We were more into sketching, and we even got to those tools that Ed calls in the advanced stages, like flags, faces, and so on. And to be honest, I really got some big fails, but as well some really big, incredible sessions where I was amazed when I got the feedback.
Yep.
But I was wondering who can share experiences with modeling, because for me, that's something I never tried and really seems useful, and kind of would love to hear what everyone else has to share with it.
Yeah, I can start. I only modeled about 6 times. I just didn't get on with it because I don't know. It's just such a pain in the ass. Really, I had to get the modeling clay out. You know, I had to sit there and do it, and then I'd have this 3D model, and then to get it back to the tasker, I'd have to take pictures of it from like 4 different angles, and then upload the pictures as well, scanning in the session. It's just, for me, it just became too cumbersome. So I knocked it on the head. If I'm honest, I got lazy and didn't explore it. It just didn't work for me. Maybe air modeling, where you're actually modeling the target with your hands in the air, and then you're writing the impressions on the paper with sketches. I can see how that would work in an operational basis. But for me, in the amount of work that I'm doing, it just didn't work. But maybe other people out there got better experiences. It just didn't work as a process for me.
Thanks for sharing that, and really would love to hear more people sharing on that.
Any of you guys modeled out there?
Hey, Daz, it's Andrew. I got a quick follow-up to that modeling question.
Yep.
Have you ever thought about trying a 3D program to do the modeling with? Would that even work?
I thought about it, and I think, and I've also played with VR headsets, and I think that the technology is getting there. It's not there yet. Microsoft's got a good augmented reality mechanism using some of their tablets. And augmented reality is a bit like what you've got on, well, some of you have on your mobile phones, whereas, you've got the camera that sees a view, and then you can do stuff over the top and interfacing with the camera view. I think that in 5 to 10 years time will be pretty amazing for RV, because you'll be able to, you won't have to wear the headset, because you'll be able to look at it on a screen, but you will be able to wear a glove or something, and you will be able to verbally communicate and say, okay, I feel like there's a square structure here. And the moment you say it, you might be able to, with your fingers in the hand, actually create a 3D structure in space, but without actually wearing the helmet, and then spin it around, add things to it, add color and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's coming. I just don't think we're there yet, but I think we're very close to it.
I can add something on this because I am a 3D modeler. I was a beta tester for Maxon and Cinema 4D for a number of years. And my initial reaction to the question is there's so much left brain involvement in 3D modeling through a program that it would mess up the idea of getting signal information, because you're constantly dealing with this very complicated interface. That said, I do find it interesting that there's this painting program in virtual reality, which is kind of like just brushing into 3D space. You can literally flow paint in the air. It hangs there, and you can look around it, and you can work with it. You can move it around and stuff. That's a different kind of approach, and I think there might be something there for remote viewing in the future. I haven't done it, but those are just a couple of data points.
To add to that, Don, I think where it might work is if you do all your RV first and get it out of the way, and then maybe a day later or an hour later as an extra component, so you're not essentially in the target anymore, but you then maybe do a composite kind of 3D model or sketch and stuff, so you don't have to worry about the controls interrupting the flow or anything so much. It might work in that scenario.
I would agree with that, although I am just starting to get into this intuitive sketching phase in my RV, and there's something about sort of interacting with it in the signal line in real time. So I still need to explore this more.
Yeah, and that's why I'm loving the tablet as well, because it's just got so many tools there. I guess it helps because I'm a bit of an artist anyway. But the sketches I'm doing now in RV on a tablet, it's almost like I get to the stage 3 and I can't wait to get in there and play with the tools, because the tools on the tablet are just so beautiful in what you can do with you can color and you can use pencils and all that kind of stuff.
I've seen you put color into your sketches now. That's the step.
I've started to now, and that's one of the good things about, I haven't got it here, about having the color tablet as well, is you can easily add color, and you've got an eraser on the pencil and all kinds of stuff.
Do you actually consider, okay, that's the wrong shade, let me change the shade? Do you get into it like that?
Not as hardcore as that right now, no. It's literally just, I'll add a bit of yellow, I'll add a bit of red. This feels blue, and I just add a bit of blue. I'm generally just shading to give dimension to things in the sketches, really. I haven't gone as far as doing...
You're adding shadows?
Oh, yes. Shadows and dimension, yeah.
Wow, okay. That's...
I can show you some at basic, actually. It's... Let's see if I can pick one up here. I'm going to have a look through some of my RV sessions here just to see if I can pick something up where I've done some stuff. Okay, yeah, but you have to bear in mind it's probably a bit of an esoteric type target. But I can show you sketching, I think, in it. Well, this was sketching actually on paper. But it's, I can show you some of the kind of sketching I do now, the shading I do. So this was an esoteric target, if you can see my screen here. Let me
Oh, you're getting into the shading.
Yeah, yeah, and so this was an esoteric target of a non-human life form. So there's, I don't go hardcore into it. It's just enough to add some dimensionality to it, so you get the feel of it. Is there any more in this one? And then again, so that's like a 3D cross section of the brain from different angles and the brain lobe. So it's not hardcore sketching by any means. Let me see if I got any others here.
And by the way, the thing that you've got on the display right there, that sort of like mind map or whatever.
Yeah.
I've seen you do other sessions with that in there, and I'd like to know what that is.
Yeah, I can show you that in a sec. Let me just see if I got any sketches in here. Yeah, so here I'm just using gray just to add a bit of line, bit of gray there. This was when I was using on paper, and I shown Dimmy this as well, who I'm mentoring in CRV at the moment. Let me just stop sharing the screen a minute, see if I can show you these. It's not easy with my background on. So on paper sessions, I didn't add color on paper because I didn't want to distract, because in CRV you're drawing in a gray environment, no bright colors and stuff. So just to add dimension to my sketches, I went to the local art shop and I bought these artist markers, and they're great because they have a thin end and they have a thick end, and I essentially bought them in shades of gray, and I got like cool grays 2, 3, and 6. So they're just 3 different shades of gray, which I use on sketches like this, literally just to add some kind of impact on dimension without using colors to distract what I was doing within the RV session. And there's some more there, just bits of gray, just the occasional place here and there, just to add a little bit of depth to your sketches.
This is really inspirational.
So I found that works quite well. And now that I've moved to tablet, I've got a lot more tools. But let's go back to the stage 5 thing. So we're talking CRV here. In CRV stage 5, you're essentially taught that you're not essentially, and you can kind of use this at any stage really. It doesn't have to be stage 5. And I've been having a discussion with Tom McNair on this. Because I always said to him, in the CRV stage 5, called the emanation stage, was in the wrong place, really. It just felt like it was an interruption. But, you could use this anyway. Anyway, stage 5 CRV, you're not on target anymore. You're essentially looking inside yourself for all the information you've gathered, and then you interrogate that in a lot more detail. And stage 5 in CRV, you write all these topics across the page. It's like topics, emanations, subjects, animations. I can't remember what they are, but it's emanations. And then you try to list underneath all these. You try to break down data and list them under the appropriate category. I could never get on with it. One, because you had to write emanations so many times across the top. It bugged me. And I could never understand if the data would go if it would go in the subjects category, or if it would go in the topics category, or if it would go in another category. Me being a creative artist person, that kind of regimented linear thinking just didn't work for me. But in my design meetings, when we would brainstorm ideas, we would do what we call mind mapping. So I would, so I'm essentially doing the same thing here that in traditional CRV is I would take a piece of information that I'd previously had, and essentially I look back from my sessions and say, okay, what data stands out? But what I do in my RV session is, as I'm going through stages 1, 2, 3, and 4, if there are any words that I feel are important or not in my normal dialogue, I underline those. Just as a note to myself that if I do a stage 5, that might be something that I want to interrogate later for more information. So, this, as you can see here, it says energy visible. This probably would have been a line. This probably would have been a word that I underlined somewhere. You can see some of the lines I've underlined, like culture, long process there. I've underlined the word seeding there. So the words that I feel are important that might need more explanation that I underline, and that energy one was probably one that I underlined somewhere. And then I take it into stage 5. So essentially what I do with mind mapping is you write the word of focus in the middle of the page, and then you just let your train of thought extrapolate that word out into all its different meanings. So here on one form or fork here I had, it felt like a form, change, shape, and density. Something else to do with energy here felt like it was internal, flowing. I can't read my own writing on that there.
Are you
Core.
doing one of these legs at a time, or are you sort of like
Yes.
writing? Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing a leg at a time, and I'm just letting every word that, so I'm saying to myself, okay, what does energy mean to me? Why did I get that data? And the very first words that come in, I'm writing them down, and I'm letting the chain just develop. Sometimes these chains interconnect. Sometimes I might have a leg going from here over to here. This is only like one example on that. Yeah, I haven't got any others to hand to show you. And yeah, I literally do that. And, on the next page, I may pick another word. Or it's really good if you get an AOL as well, because we know that AOLs most generally contain part real data and part noise. So you can take your AOL into stage 5, write your AOL in the middle, and start breaking it down into all the constituent little bits and little components to try and find which is the noise and which is the signal.
Wow. Did you see somebody else using this technique? It's pretty interesting.
It was literally because, this is what we do in design meetings. If being a designer and being brainstorming and being part of the Web 2.0 kind of community, I would be in design meetings, with a big pad in front. You'd say, okay, the problem is this in the middle. You do it, and then you break it down into all its parts. But I did, a couple of years after I started using this, David Morehouse also changed his stage 5, and he started doing mind mapping as well.
Oh, I'm glad I asked the question. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I find it works. Because I'm not that kind of military regimented kind of writing things down in lists type person. I find that this for me as a creative process flowed a lot better than writing topics, emanations, subjects, animations, blah, blah. I can't remember what they all are, but it literally was so long and laborious. And just writing the word emanations out I think like 7 times across a page. And then, I'd get a piece of data and I'd be like, where does this fit? Is it a topic? Is it a subject?
Right.
Messed me up. I just couldn't do it. So I never ended up doing it. And this stage 5 one for me just flows beautifully. But you don't have to do this at stage 5. You can literally do this. If you've got any word at any stage or an AOL, just drop into what we call a stage 5 and just do a mind map of it.
Oh, thank you for explaining that. That is really cool, and I will try that.
It works for me. As I said, it's not official CRV, but I think each of us need to find what works for us as individuals.
I so agree. Yeah.
Excellent. So how are we with questions? Has anyone else got anything they want to ask or comment on or share? Because we're getting on for nearly 2 hours there.
I have a question for you.
Yep.
In stage 6, I know traditionally it's supposed to be modeling with clay and that type of thing, whatever. I do the same thing you do in stage 5. I couldn't do the across the thing with the letters, and I got so confused and so uptight about it. I just started doing something very similar. I took AOLs and I just broke them apart, and that worked for me. But in stage 6, I don't model clay. What I do is I heard Paul Smith talk about, I think he called it palpating it or palpations, whatever. He took his hands and he said you could actually put in your hands and feel it and kind of go in your head the stage, or the target number and see what happens. And I find it works that if I just put the clay in my hands and just touch it and feel it and just wait for this more information to come in, and it could be sentences, could be colors, could be anything. What is your take on that?
Yeah. I mean, that's almost what I do, with the whiteboards and stuff like that. But yeah, and I said it like air modeling as well. You don't actually have to model the target. You can actually, be there at your desk and just like, okay, it feels, this part feels flat, and you're like doing this and say, okay, you're writing down flat, and you're saying, okay, it feels, feels like it's linear at this side, and do it like that without actually getting any physical tools out. But yeah, I would say, to be honest, it's not CRV doctrine, but any tool could probably help you. It's a bit like using tea leaves or tarot cards to tell people their fortunes. You're just using the tool as a device, as a concentration method for you, a kinesthetic concentration method for you to get the data flow coming. Yeah, so anything would work. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe even Lego. Lego might be quite cool. Be excuse to get the Lego out. Yeah.
So I'm just kind of curious. I know you stick probably to the first, say, 3 stages normally, but do you sometimes find yourself jumping stages and going like I find myself sometimes going from stage 3 right to stage 6. I'm excited about, I got a feeling about something and I want to touch that clay, and then I might go back to stage 5 saying, okay, it was a red truck. Now a red truck, now let's break it apart. What does that mean? It means the fire, there's people running, there's water, that, you know. Do you ever do that, or do you just stick to your normal method, I guess I would say, you know?
Let me show you. It'd be easier if I show you.
Okay.
I'm a proponent, and I've said this many times, CRV is absolutely fantastic, like any method is great. But the documents show, the Stargate documents show, and I know from experience that out of the box CRV isn't great for every scenario. It's great for training and learning remote viewing, but to try to put that as an application towards every operational scenario, it doesn't work. So what I do, and it takes time, is I end up mutating CRV for every project I work. So this is if you can see this screen here, this is a target. I literally just worked for crypto viewing, and it was a cryptocurrency this week, and it's a cryptocurrency called Theta. So this is the session summary. So yeah, if you guys haven't seen a session summary before, this is an idea of how I do a summary. So this is like my typed up summary. And then bearing in mind I'm using CRV because I'm looking at something that is intangible to a certain degree, which is a cryptocurrency. I've mutated CRV so that the ideograms now, when I'm doing a cryptocurrency, they don't show me things like life, structure, land, or because none of that's important. What my ideograms are mutated to do when they know I'm doing a cryptocurrency is my ideograms actually show me the market flow of the crypto in the ideogram. So this is Theta, and this caused me some concerns on this one, and it's only happened second time in 3 years of doing this, in that most my ideograms for cryptos follow the market flow, and the market flow usually goes forward because it's day to day going forward. But this one went backwards first, and that's only ever happened twice. And the first time it happened, it instantly told me that, whoa, there's a problem here. So the moment I did this, it was like, whoa, there's a problem here, just from that pure little bit there alone. And I wrote here, backwards and forwards. So here's my ideograms in CRV for cryptocurrencies, and they are just imitating the flow. And as you can see here, they're all going backwards, which showed me that there was some kind of issue or problem with this. And then it's not worth me doing any sensory data because, it's something that's possibly intangible. So why do I need to taste it, stroke it, smell it, all that kind of stuff? So literally I just move straight to stage 3, where I try to, using sketches, describe the logo or the brand of the crypto. So here's my ideas of the logo and brand. And essentially the actual logo for this target, I can't pull it out right now, but it's called Theta, and its logo is just a T. So I think, by me saying this feels linear and it's graphical and it's connected letters, I think this here was me trying to get the T, and then again, this one upside down, which is the T, which is the logo. So I literally go from ideograms to stage 3, and then I go into stage 4, and I always ask myself this is where we were talking about ethics earlier. I always go and look at the primary person involved with the target, which is always the CEO. So here I'm talking about CEO, and I know they're male, that's their age, roughly what they look like, their head, what they're thinking like. And then that instantly brought me to the team, and I knew the team below them were young, pro, they were all male as well. So more on the team stuff here. So I am in stage 4, but it's like a bastardized version of stage 4. I'm still looking at the team here. So this is all team stuff. And then in stage 4, I actually moved to the tech or product only. So I try to describe the tech or product. And in this case, I just kept getting all these server boxes. Server boxes like a modem here, and so I'm actually, this is where you can actually see the sketching I'm doing with the colors on a tablet.
Looks great.
So, just by a few strokes of the tablet is adding quite a lot of,
Impact.
dimensional detail to the
Yeah.
sketches. And then I move to another thing. What I do is I move to the, and again, this isn't even CRV. This is completely made up here. I move to the people that are hoed, or we call them hodlers, but the people that hold a cryptocurrency and they're holding on to it for an investment. I move to their actual group sentiment. So how they're feeling as a group entity or life form, like a hive mind. And I see at different times what they're feeling like. So August 2021, December 2021, January 2022, December 2022, and then July 2023. And I literally just probe the group sentiment of everyone that owns that crypto just to see how they feel at different points in time. So I just write a little note here. Again, this is all just customized for the project that I'm working on. And then I literally do some sketch diagrams of how I think the market flow is going to work, January to August. So that's already happened. And then from August to December, and then next year from January to December. So I do some flow diagrams of how I think the market looks going to be. And then here is just some final freeform stuff at the end. I allow myself at the end to just write anything that's in my head. So anything in my head, I just write it down no matter what it is. There's no structure to it at all, just to get it out, which is interesting because sometimes this is actually the most accurate information in our entire session.
Right.
Like, for example, this is called Theta, and it's essentially what they call a stable coin, and it's backed by gold. So every dollar that's spent on Theta, and they claim it's something like 60 billion worth of it now has been bought. They have that backed up with $60 billion of gold. And right in the back here, I got, bearing in mind I'm doing this blind, I got this is to do with swaps, and this is to do with gold bars and assets which are high worth. So again, because it's cryptos, it's kind of CRV at its core, but I've had to change it to the situation. And when I worked missing people cases, or when I did, I had to do the very same thing because the police were only interested in a GPS coordinate and a description of the target site and nothing else. I had to invent a whole suite of tools where I could try to triangulate a location that I could then find GPS coordinates on the map. And I think everyone that takes CRV into the operational realm, you kind of have to change it and mutate it to get the specific information that client wants for that area that you're looking at.
Das, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, thanks for sharing that pretty lovely procedure, really.
Excellent. Yep.
Excellent. Just wanted to know, how do you approach the S3 thing with the detailed drawings, because they are so great? And how do you start? You just start like with a visual, or just kinesically, or how do you manage to go with that level of detail without messing it with drawings and spontaneous things?
Let me show you here again. I mean, I started off with this one with an idea. I had a flash. I had a flash of imagery in my head, but it was fast. And I know the difference between AOL imagery and real imagery. So it's almost like whew, there and it's gone, and it's almost like a memory. Then you're almost thinking, oh, what was that? I vaguely remember the shape. So that's what I drew here, and as you can see, it's really basic. It's just like square lines, and I knew it had colored lights that were flashing on it, and one was red, one was green. That was all I got in that glimpse. But then I guess I just managed to, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm an artist and a creative. I can't explain it really. I just put the pen on the paper, and I don't allow myself to think or be judgmental about whatever comes out. I think that's that you just trust. Just put the pen on your paper, and just allow the trust in what it wants to do, in the lines it wants to create, and the shades it wants to create. That's all I can say, really. I'm doing this. Bearing in mind, I'm doing this for a cryptocurrency that doesn't physically exist. And I'm trying to draw the tech, and I'm like thinking to myself, if I sat there and analyzed this and thought, well, why the hell am I drawing a computer part for this, for something that doesn't exist? It doesn't make sense, really. But I don't. I just say, be non-judgmental of yourself. Just just allow whatever flows. That's all I can say really. And it, and you can see it's not brilliant. This is only built up with like pen
Oh,
lines.
but it's clear, it's minimalistic, it's like great. It's great. It's something to follow, really.
Yeah, I think really it's just, I always try to keep the really hardly any colors, just grays, and maybe if there is a dominant color, like I wouldn't have usually used red or green, but I kind of had the feeling on this from my flash imagery that it had a red and green flashing light, so I thought I better use color because it just felt prominent. But like on the charts here, it's just like, you can see how roughly it's like filled in with the pen. It's just like just add a bit of dimension to it. And I think it helps immensely by just adding very basic shades. That's why the pens are good that I showed you earlier.
Lovely.
For pencil sessions, or on a tablet. The tablet, it's mind blowing the tools you have on there, because you have airbrushes, watercolor brushes, all kinds of stuff.
Thanks.
Yeah, but just play with it. Honestly, just play and trust. That's all it is. Every time, just trust yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much, Des. That's very inspiring. I have to admit, it makes you want to remote view now some different, like you just said there, kind of experiment a little bit, and go for it and stuff. Don't question yourself.
Yeah,
so, thank you. Yep.
And the same with adapting the method as well. Whatever method you guys are learning, it's good for learning when you're training and stuff. But when you get in the real world and there's very specific answers and questions that you want, you do have to change what you do. CRV out of the box won't work perfectly for every scenario. And CRV is great it was designed perfectly for getting bridges and structures and all that kind of stuff. Right. But when you when you need to, I don't know, go inside the mind of a scientist or something to describe what they're thinking about creating as a tool, or when they're going to attack a certain scenario or something, that intangible type data is a lot harder to get and record in CRV. So you have to start being a bit more creative in the ways you attack that.
Excellent. Thank you.
How long would you say that you practiced remote viewing before you felt comfortable making those sorts of modifications?
Oh, it was definitely 5-6+ years at least, I think. Yeah, I was well in, I didn't start doing the stage 5 kind of mind map stuff until probably about a decade ago. So I was probably 10 years in at that stage. And, to my own loss, because I didn't like the stage 5, I just didn't use it. A bit like the stage 6, I should really replace the stage 6 modeling with more advanced sketches. But again, I do so much RV, I get a bit lazy myself. You get to stage 4, you do a bit of stage 5, think, do I really want to spend an hour doing a sketch? I've been here an hour already. I got things to do. And I'm human like everyone else. We'll get a bit lazy. I've only just, I showed you guys my summary. I've only just gone back to actually typing up summaries because for the last 2 years, I was so lazy. I didn't attach summaries to any of my RV sessions. And then I looked back at one of my old sessions and saw the summary that I typed up and I thought, wow, that's really good. Why did I stop doing those? And I realized it was because I was actually being lazy and adding an extra 20 minutes to doing the RV session. But I'm now forcing myself to go back and attach typed up summaries to all my RV sessions, because I have to be honest, my writing is pretty hard to read at times as well. So be aware of that as well. On top of everything else, a really good typed up RV summary makes a difference as well. To the longer ones, if you're doing like an ARV and it's like a page, don't worry about it. Has anyone got anything else they want to share or ask or anything? Because we're running it just over 2 hours for the evening. No, I think that's it then.
Hey,
well,
Dan,
thanks for that, guys.
Just one last thing.
Yeah, go for it.
I just want to say thanks for everything you do for the community and the practice of remote viewing.
Oh, that's very kind of you. No, I like sharing with you guys. It's all good stuff. Someone shared with me one day and taught me CRV for nothing, so it's my duty to pass on some stuff to everyone else.
It's much appreciated. I don't even do remote viewing myself.
Yeah,
it's just something that's very interesting to me, and man, it's just really cool to see you share this, this time with people, and the information that you do. So thank you.
No, it's great. It's great chatting to you all. Because just for having these conversations, it's great to see the ideas back and forth and everyone's opinions and stuff. So we're all learning. As I keep saying to people, even though I've been doing this RV thing for 24, 25 years, we're all still students. We don't know anything about what's going on with this. It
Agreed.
still flummoxes me to this day. It is magic, and it's just like until we know more, we're all students. We all have something to learn, so it's great. This kind of community chat's fantastic. We're all learning something from this. Excellent. Well,
same feelings. Yeah, same feelings here. Thank you, Das, for everything.
Yeah, no, it's great. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for this week. Hopefully, we'll be back again next week. I'm trying to line up some guests at the moment. Some of the guests I'm lining up, though, might be just one-on-one interviews. I've got an interview arranged with, I don't know if you know, but there's a guy called Nick Pope. He wrote a book called The Hunt for 0 Point. And he also did, he edited Ingo's last book, Resurrecting the Mysterious, as well. I got something arranged with him, but I think I might do a one-to-one on that. But as soon as I do, I'll put that as well. But I'm also trying desperately to get hold of Joe McMoneagle because he said he'd come on and give a talk. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to arrange that soon. It's just a weird time of year because we're in the summer holidays and the kids are off and people are arranging to do things and stuff. So it's hard to get people right now. But we'll see what we can arrange.
I saw something in the group saying Diane Hennessy Powell might be an interesting guest. I thought that would be. Yeah,
if anyone's got any details and contact details on that they can pass me, then I'm more than happy to approach anyone. Excellent. Well, thanks a lot this week, guys. It's been a great chat. You have a good weekend and a week ahead, and we'll see each other soon.
Take care, everyone. Thank you, Das. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.